sound this time, fellas? Everything working? Hopefully it's working this time. That was okay. That was weird. For some reason, I hit start stream and it started multiple instances of YouTube at one time, apparently. Real, really weird. First time I've ever had that happen. Anyway, welcome to This Week Unloaded again. I'm your host, Rich White, and it seems we got the technical kinks worked out. So, hey, we can get started. Now, I know, if you've seen the thumbnail, we got Mr. Gizzard Gary jumping. Hello, sir.
Yo.
So, you made it just in time, thanks to the technical difficulty. I hit go. I hit the start stream button up in the top right hand corner there, and it opened up three pieces on YouTube. Don't know what happened there, but I had to shut everything down and restart it, which is easy to do in Rumble Studio. Thank God. I didn't have to reset up anything. I just closed it and then rescheduled it and hit the start button. Real easy. So, anyway, how's your day today?
Boring.
Boring.
Most exciting thing I did was run out to the cemetery this afternoon.
Your father's grave?
My father's, my grandfather's, my uncle's, my nephew, and my grandniece. I had 5 of them I had to decorate. So.
All 5 served?
No.
No? Okay.
No. But
I thought I'm thinking
Decoration Day too. Memorial Day wise, my father served. He did not die in service, but he most certainly was a veteran. But this isn't Veterans Day. This is Memorial Day. It's a different holiday. On Memorial Day, we honor those who gave their life in service to their country.
Right.
And for that, tomorrow, hopefully, I will visit the Veterans Memorial downtown. Hopefully, they'll have it decorated up. I went by today, and they only had part of their flags up. So that's where they had the big memorial of all the people in the county who died in the various wars and stuff like that. So.
Yeah. So I'm debating whether I want to take the chat off of there because it's almost covering your logo.
So, a lot of people are confused, and Memorial Day is kind of a dual holiday because you have the Decoration Day aspect of it where you decorate all of your family members' graves, and then the actual Memorial Day. So
yeah, it started as Decoration Day. When
it did.
Abe Lincoln instituted it, that's what it originally was called, was Decoration Day.
And there's absolutely nothing wrong with honoring the dead in your family, but don't get that confused with Memorial Day. Yeah.
No. Vulcan Rumble says having strange issues with Rumble Player, Rumble Studio, and YouTube Player for the last month. Wow. That was the first time I've seen that happen where it hit start and it opened multiple things in YouTube. But I've had that happen. One of the other channels I watch had that happen with StreamYard a couple days ago. He went to start his live and it opened up multiple things on YouTube. So I don't know if it's a YouTube thing.
I don't know.
Falcon Rumble says it's so rainy there that they've got a duck in the yard now. It's been raining here. It's supposed to rain here for the next week, I think.
Yeah, we've had 2 sunny days. Late yesterday, and then all day today was nice and sunny. It was a nice day. So
yeah, we're going from drought-like conditions where they're now worried about flash flooding. So went from one extreme to another.
So while I was working on Mom and Dad's grave, I noticed one of the vases that were glued on either side. Usually every year I have to re-glue one of those on because they knock them off when they do lawn maintenance and stuff like that
Hmm.
out there.
Yeah, you'd think they would have enough sense to fix it if they do something like that.
That and the war memorial markers, I've already had to replace Dad's because they broke off the old one. And I bought one off Amazon. Then I was told, well, the county will replace them for free if you just go down and get it. I didn't know that.
Mm,
It's nice that they do that. It didn't cost me that much, but
yeah.
still, I'm not too worried about it, but it's nice to know you can do that.
Hmm. And so, anyway, if your town, county, maybe even state level are doing anything for Memorial Day tomorrow, go check it out. You know, pay honor to the people who gave their lives so that we could be here doing this now. So without
Yeah,
them,
even in this small county I live in, they have a really nice war memorial downtown here, and it's got the list. There's probably about 3 dozen names of people who died in World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, stuff like
hmm
that. And just to realize, these were all people here. Some of them distantly related to me, others not. But it's like he kind of brings it close to home. It's like, yeah, it came from everywhere.
yeah, north side of Pittsburgh, not far from the Johnny Old supermarket I worked at. There's a World War I memorial there, and my great great uncle's name is on there on my grandmother's side. He lost his life in World War I. He was a pilot, which was probably the most dangerous job you could have in World War I. Those planes weren't very airworthy.
And we've got a stretch of US 75 outside of town that is named for someone who was originally declared missing in action in Vietnam, and they finally declared him deceased. So he's part of the memorial now, but he got a stretch of highway named after him, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, you get that around here. There's various parts of highways and bridges that are named for different veterans that lost their life in service to the country. And then on the telephone poles, they each of them has a little streamer thing hanging off it with the photo and lifetime of a veteran from the town here who gave their life in service to the country.
Yeah, when I think about, and I've read some of the memoirs of people who were in my dad's tank company and stuff like that about some of the battles they went through and how close they came and stuff like they went through battles where they'd lose 3 quarters of their tanks and stuff like that and how they got out of it alive. They wasn't real
Hmm.
sure, but how close that hit home. It could be anybody.
Yeah. Well, I think we need to get to our topics because the second one's going to take a while. But the first one, it wasn't on the schedule, but we had another shooting in D.C. near the White House again.
Oh yeah, I
Uh,
read about that.
yeah,
Some guy who claimed he was Jesus, evidently.
always somebody doing something. Why is that still showing up?
Yeah, I forget the schmuck's name, and to be honest, I don't really feel like glorifying somebody for doing something
Yeah,
stupid like that anyway.
yeah. I don't even know what his name was because I didn't pay attention to enough to find out. What I did pull up was the Secret Service official postings that they put out about it from yesterday. This one's from yesterday. Yeah. Preliminary statement regarding the shooting incident on 17th Street and Pennsylvania Avenue, United States Secret Service, May 23rd, 2026. Shortly after 6 p.m. Saturday, an individual in the area of 17th Street and Pennsylvania Avenue pulled a weapon from his bag and began firing. Secret Service police returned fire, striking the suspect, who was transported to an area hospital where he is pronounced dead or deceased. During the shooting, one bystander was also struck by gunfire. No injuries were sustained by officers. The president was in the White House during the incident. However, no protectees or operations were impacted. This incident remains under investigation, and additional information will be released as it becomes available. At the point when this release was put out, I also saw another post that said that the woman, I believe it was a woman who was struck, she was in surgery and in critical condition. And
It's my
today,
understanding that the bystander died also.
okay, as of about an hour ago, Anthony Guglielmi, the same person who put out the previous statement, posted a statement from the director of the Secret Service. Director Sean Curran commends the courage, vigilance, and decisive action of the Secret Service police who confronted yesterday's gunman. He notes that their response saved lives. Curran also expresses hope for the recovery of the innocent bystander wounded in yesterday's incident. Again, United States Secret Service statement. I want to recognize the quick and decisive response demonstrated by our Secret Service police officers last night in confronting an armed gunman. Their training, vigilance, positioning, and immediate actions were instrumental in saving lives. Our officers continue to operate heroically in heightened political threat environment. We are grateful no officers were injured and appreciate the strong support from our federal and local partners. Our thoughts are also with the innocent bystander who was wounded during the incident. The Secret Service is hopeful was a male. He will make a full recovery. There was mixed reports last night. One report I know I saw said it was a woman, so apparently it was a man.
Yeah, and I'm looking at news stories now. I'm getting conflicting information as to whether that bystander actually did die or is in serious condition. Everything I'm reading says serious condition, so the initial report may have been erroneous.
Yeah, well, stop sharing that one because I want to take a look at the map so give everybody an idea of exactly where this happened.
Yeah, because everybody was going nuts saying he got so close to the White House. Not
Oh,
if
it
he
was.
actually, well,
It was
perimeter
very close.
wise, but it wasn't right outside the door or anything
No,
like
it
that.
wasn't right outside the door, but it was close enough. Go over here and look at the map. This little red pin right here, that's the intersection where it happened.
I can't see anything. Hold on.
Is it not showing up on the screen? Oh, it's okay. Sure.
I didn't see it on YouTube. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
Let's see. I see it here. Okay.
is it sharing on YouTube? Should be.
Uh, Let me get live here. Maybe I'm not live. You know how it is about being live.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, it's showing now.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Let me go back over to the big map. This little red pin right here, that's the intersection where it happened, and the White House is right over here. It was actually
Right.
closer to the Eisenhower executive offices, but this is the area where it happened at. So, fairly
Yeah.
close to the White House. It was definitely within walking distance of the White
Wow.
House. Yeah. Peter Parker House. I thought that would be in New York, not Washington. Oh,
So
come on.
evidently, this dude had tried to get by security before.
Wouldn't surprise me.
He was known to White House security.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wouldn't surprise me. Crazy if they don't succeed once, they'll try again.
And he claimed to be Jesus.
Yeah.
He was not.
No. He found that out the hard way. And I don't think he's going to resurrect in 3 days.
No.
No. Yeah, I mean, it was fairly close to the White House. It was closer than the last one. So,
And then there are people saying, well, a bystander was shot, so Secret Service is just shooting any Americans they want to. And it's like, it doesn't work that way. When there's a hail of gunfire, you try
yeah.
like heck for that not to happen. But
Yeah, and I highly doubt it was Secret Service firing at the guy that got the
did
innocent
you see the
bystander.
reports of all the reporters who were on White House grounds doing live reports at the time?
Well, they
Like
probably were.
ABC was there, and you could hear the gunshots. Some of them was taking cover. Others they're standing right out in the middle of the lawn with gunshots going around. It's
Hmm.
like you better get behind something.
Yeah. What makes this even crazier is Trump wasn't even supposed to be at the White House yesterday. He was supposed to
Right.
be at the birth of his grandchild. Junior and his fiance had a kid be born yesterday. Trump was supposed to be there, but he came back to the White House because of some other situation. And then this happens last night. It's like, it's crazy. Yeah. It really wasn't all that far from the White House. Yeah. But it's not like Gary said, it wasn't at the front gates, but close enough. It's probably in this. I would, if I had to make a guess, I would say it probably down in this area somewhere
Well,
where it
you
happened.
can't exactly isolate one whole quarter mile of the city around the White House. I mean,
No.
it used to be you could drive on a lot of these streets you're seeing here. Now
Hmm.
you can't.
Yeah, a lot of them they've closed off. Like pre 9/11, this was wide open right here,
Hmm.
but they put in this little area for driving, where for the president and stuff to get there. But anybody else, yeah, you can't just drive there anymore like you used to be able to. You used to be able to just drive right by the White House. Now it's just service roads. But now this caught my eye too when I was looking at this map. Is it just me or is that a putting green?
It does look like one.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting. I mean, I'm looking at the map for where the shooting occurred, and I see that. Like, is that a putting green? And you got a swimming pool over here. You zoom in, you see the diving board. I think the White
Yeah,
House has an indoor pool too, doesn't it?
I bet you couldn't go swimming there though.
Oh, bet you couldn't, unless you were the president's guest. Anyway, speaking of that, did you see where Jackson Dart, the Giants quarterback, went and introduced Trump at a speech he was giving the other day?
Oh yeah,
Well, one of his teammates decided to go on X and throw a fit because he did that.
too bad.
Hmm. I wonder if he realizes his head coach is friends with Trump and voted for and supports. And so does his brother too. The Harbaugh brothers, both of them. Jim and John Harbaugh are both Trump supporters and have made various appearances with Donald Trump and other members of his cabinet. There's people saying, "Whoa, he's probably going to end up cut." All right. So, yeah, if anybody was wondering where that happened, that's where that happened. So, all right, now I got to come over here and get. I got to set up the YouTubes for the second part of the show, the main topic. And before anybody asks, I have got pre-approval because we are going to watch and analyze live an interview that was done by the Reload with the chief legal counsel for the ATF, regarding the new rules changes, and we'll see just how much our guesses about what they were doing actually line up. So let me pull up YouTube here. It would help if I was on my channel and not my studio. Open up a new YouTube tab. I said open a new YouTube tab, you dumb. Oh, I hate when it does that. It doesn't want to listen. There we go. Now I'll open up another one. All right. Watch later. Oh, yay. Freaking ad. You know what? I'm going to switch accounts to my private person account. All right. All right. Got that pulled up. Now I got to go here. And first thing I'm going to do is go here. Pull that. All right. Then I'm going to switch us. Wait a minute. It only put me there. Why didn't it put you? Oh, it did. It
I
put you at
don't
the
know.
bottom. It put you at the bottom and doesn't have me on the screen. Oh, well, no big deal. Oh, I am on the screen. I'm full screen. Okay. So let's see what happens if I put that on stage. Yeah, it only shows you. Unless I do that, and then we're covered by the chat.
Cool.
Yeah, you can't see us. We're hiding.
It's all right. I'm just a logo anyway. I'm not a real person.
Mm-hmm.
Just a circle.
Oh, Packer, was asking where the basketball court is. Basketball court. Okay, if you think back to when I just had that map up where it looked like the swimming pool and the putting green were, if you go directly south from the swimming pool and southwest from the bowling green, the putting green, that's where the basketball court's at. The outdoor basketball court, anyway. I think Obama put an indoor one in as well, didn't he?
Yeah, I think so. But if we get our ballroom, should be plenty big enough to play basketball in if they want
Mm-hmm.
to.
Where did I put that video? Here it is. All right, you ready to do this?
I guess.
All right. And yes, I have full permission to go ahead and do this. I emailed the gentleman that runs the reload, and he was like, "Yeah, go ahead, just give us proper credit," which I have done in the comment in the description. There is a link back to the original video. If you want to go back and watch this later on your own, you can do so. So. All right, here we
Chief
go.
Counsel Robert Leider explains dozens of the Bureau's new gun rules. That and more on this episode of the Weekly Reload Podcast.
Yeah. Rather interesting what he has to say.
Got no hold on me. All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Weekly Reload Podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Gutowski. I'm also the founder of TheReload.com, where you can head over and sign up for our free weekly newsletter today if you want to keep up to date with what's going on with guns in America from a sober, serious perspective that focuses on hard news and analysis. This week, we are diving into the ATF's new gun rule package. And to do that, we actually have somebody who can speak for the ATF. That's the chief counsel, Robert Leider, here with us. Actually, back on the show. He's been on once before he was at the ATF. But welcome back, Rob. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I think I was on here last time right before I joined the ATF.
That's right. Yeah, I think it was December of 2024. So to talk about what you thought should happen at the ATF, and I think now here we are. It was about a year and a half later.
Yeah, real quick. Does that look better full screen like that, or in theater mode? Do you think
I like the full screen.
the full screen looks better? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about what is happening at the ATF and what is, I think, the biggest, at least by number, of proposed rules we've seen come out of the ATF, maybe ever. Certainly, I know that you guys have described it as, a historic package. There's 34 rules, 32 that apply directly to firearms in some way or another. I think there's a cigarette and explosive one in there as well. But yeah, why don't we start off? It's good to have you here to give the ATF's perspective. I know you worked not by yourself, but in concert with other folks at the ATF on developing these rules. Let's start off with how they're going to affect gun buying.
Yeah, to that point that he just made about the chief counsel there, Mr. Leider, he was just appointed to this position under the Trump administration last year. So he's not a Biden holdover. This guy is new to the agency. So just wanted to point that out for everybody.
That's where a number of them are focused. You have things that where the goal seems to be streamlining and sort of modernizing ATF practices around applying the Gun Control Act or the National Firearms Act or any number of other firearms statutes. Can you just give people an overview of how gun buying is going to change for the average person at the end of this, if these rules are implemented as written?
So when I got here, there was a lot of anger over both the Biden administration's rules and some of their policies, such as zero tolerance. And so I started looking into what we had actually done and how we can move forward. And a lot of the...
Yeah, if you all didn't catch what he was just saying, that in the ATF itself, they were not happy about what the Biden administration had been doing. He goes on to explain why.
Zero tolerance derived from errors on paperwork forms and primarily the 4473. And so one of my first projects when I got here was how can we simplify the 4473 so that there are fewer errors? And the percentage of dealers who had some kind of violation was really astounding. Most of those don't go to revocation. They only attempted to revoking arrow set even under the Biden administration zero tolerance. But my question was, can we do this better? And so one of the first things I looked at was the form itself. And the form itself is confusing. There are a lot of questions on there, like, are you the actual transferee / buyer, with a bunch of instructions on when you can have a gift, when it's not a gift. But it's hard because sometimes the buyer is not the ultimate transferee. The questions, I like to say, you also kind of drunk drive your way through the questions. Some are yes check boxes, some are no check boxes. And adverse action was taken against licensees who had transferred guns when somebody checked yes. For example, they were convicted of a felony even when the background check came back clean. And I think in a lot of those cases, the person probably had no criminal record, the sale was lawful, somebody just made an error on the form. But when you're alternating between yeses and nos, people make mistakes. Dealers who have high volumes in transactions don't necessarily see the different checkboxes for each one. Some of them have templates that they overlay to try to make sure people check the right box. And my thought...
Yeah, both of the FFLs here in town do that with the 4473. They have basically they have a template with little windows cut out. And if they look through that window and they see a check there, they know it's okay. if they look through those little windows and there's no check there, they then pull the sheet off and they look at the individual question and make sure that that either was answered or wasn't answered with the inappropriate answer that would disqualify the person from being able to purchase. So just wanted to throw that out, just from my own personal experience, that I have seen that happen.
Thought was, if you're at that point, the situation's ridiculous. The problem is with the form. And so we looked at what we really needed on the form. When I actually went back, somebody compiled for me all our historical forms. The 1968 form was 1 page. And my first thought was, can we get back to 1 page? And the answer was no. And it was no primarily because of the added requirements of the Brady Act. But 1 page was the aspiration. And I said, okay, what do we need? What do we not need? And so a bunch of information I don't think we need anymore. So the form originally asked your address, and then it asked what your city was and what your county was. Well, there were several problems with this. And it asked whether you were in city limits. Some people don't know whether they live in city limits. Some people wrote USA for county, thinking it was country. And all of these things would generate violations. And in most cases, when you see somebody's address, you know where.
Yeah, in case you guys didn't catch what he's talking about with violations, he's talking about violations under the Biden administration. If an FFL sold a firearm to somebody who put their country in the county box, they would strip their FFL from them. That's what he's talking about. It's not a violation on the buyer. He's talking about violations by the FFL that cost them their licensing.
Where they are. Somebody says they live in Washington, D.C., it's the District of Columbia, City of Washington, and it's easy. Now, there are some cases where people might have a post office in one place, but a postal address in one place, but an actual address in a different township. But these are things that, if it comes to that, you can easily look up. There are all kinds of sources that you plug in the address, and it tells you now where people go. And so, we started looking at what we could cut down. So we took out the city and county and put it on the optional page in case the dealer needed it. We took the yes and no boxes and we made it 4 places that you could initial, and the dealer can see, readily see whether somebody has initialed 4 times or not. It's different from having a dozen check boxes that alternate. We took out the redundancy. The 4473 at one point would ask you where your citizenship is, and then it would ask you, are you an alien who is illegally or unlawfully in the United States? Well, if you answer that you're a United States citizen, you're obviously not an alien with unlawful presence. And so we restructured the form so that once you check you're a citizen, those questions aren't asked. And we also overhauled where things were. So page 1 of the new form essentially acts as an application to purchase a firearm. You fill that out, and then the dealer fills out page 2, which acts as a kind of record of sale. The old form would alternate. The dealer goes, the purchaser goes, the dealer goes again, the purchaser may go again. But people would miss things. People would come back, and if you got a delay on the background check, they would have to re-sign the form. But the way it was alternating, the dealers didn't necessarily see the spot for recertification. So now every time the sale is consummated, the person will basically sign the gun out. And so you're not going to have different procedures for different types of transactions in that sense. And then, as you said, a lot of it's just modernization. A lot of the background checks are done electronically. There's no need for somebody to manually record the transaction number. They can just print it off the electronic system. You don't need to manually write down a driver's license number. You can if you want, but you can also just make a photocopy. And we started also just clearing out the regulations that unnecessarily burden dealers. So there was either regulations, or at the very least, we were giving informal guidance that individuals had to fill out the entire form manually. There's no reason that we can't have 21st century commerce that if you start to put in your address, it's keyed to Google Maps and will auto-populate, as long as you have an opportunity to change it and make sure it's accurate. But these things are more efficient for both the dealer and the consumer. They produce fewer errors, and the goal, in part, was to not just stop zero tolerance by reversing the zero tolerance policy, but to rip it out root and branch. If there's no...
Yeah, and what he's talking about is, he doesn't specify it there, but he's talking about the, if you remember when we were talking about the new rules, the electronic 4473s and the electronic background checks. That's what he's talking about when he says have it auto-populate. You're not going to be able to do that on a piece of paper. So that's what it does. Clarify that for y'all. That's what he's referring to. If you guys remember back a couple weeks ago when we were talking about this stuff.
Underlying regulatory violation, there is nothing in the future to be the subject of future discretionary enforcement actions. And I think it is to everyone's advantage to have rules that are clear, easy to follow, and don't produce unnecessary violations.
Okay, that's interesting. So you're saying effectively, obviously, there was a great deal of tension between the ATF and the gun industry during the zero tolerance era at the ATF under the Biden administration, because the industry said, these are violations that can lead to revocations of gun dealer licenses that we don't feel are serious violations. Whereas, you had on the other side gun control advocates and members of the Biden administration saying the industry's not regulated enough. There's a lot of violations.
Hold on real quick. Denny says out there on the YouTube side, he prefers the paper form so it doesn't automatically go to electronically and create a database of 4473s. They already have all his data 100 times anyway, but still do not like the idea. He covers that later on. They don't get the electronic ones automatically sent to the ATF. They'll get into that later on. So
that don't lead to revocations. And when you came in, you're arguing that a lot of these violations of these really were mistakes that could be corrected simply by changing how a number of these procedures are done and allowing for things like auto population, and that'll cut down on a lot of the issues, like a lot, and that in turn has led to these efforts that are going gun buyers are going to see a benefit of easier time filling out ATF required forms like the background check. But it sort of goes back to this issue with zero tolerance and the industry feeling it was unfair. And essentially you think that a lot of those issues could just be solved by having better processes.
Yes. I mean, let me give you a paradigmatic example. So one of the cardinal sins during the Biden administration that would result in a revocation of a federal firearms license was failure to do a background check on a purchase. And when you hear that, you think that that is something that could be serious, that you're just selling the gun and not verifying the person's eligibility, which is the core requirement of the Brady Act. But when we looked at the violations from the citations, a majority of them were not dealers simply refusing to do the background check. They were more technical than that. They were often dealers transferring the gun on day 31 or 32 or 33 after the background check. So they had done a background check. They just forgot to do a second background check because the current rule says you have 30 days. Or they were individuals that had permits, and sometimes permits that exempt you from the background check, but there were technical violations. So the Brady Act says that a permit exempts you from the background check if the permit's issued by the same state where the transaction's taking place, where the federal firearms licensee is located. But you might have somebody that has an Iowa permit that is otherwise a background check exempt and trying to use it in Texas. And so it is true that the Texas dealer shouldn't accept it. It is a technical violation of the Brady Act, but it's not the same kind of violation as handing the gun to somebody who's had no background check whatsoever.
Right.
And so, part of the form has a checklist now. It says if you take a permit in lieu of the background check, here are the things that you need to check so that those types of violations don't happen. And we increase the period of validity of the background checks from 30 days to 2 calendar months. You don't have to add up days in your head. Is this a month with 28 days, 30 days, 31 days? You can just say, okay, I sold the gun on March 4th. We'll transfer it up to and including May 4th. So it's simple.
Right.
And so we're trying to get rid of all those things. And then we're also just trying to make it more efficient. When I go buy pseudoephedrine products at the pharmacy, they scan my driver's license, and that's how they get my name and address. There's no reason a gun store can't do that. And in fact, in some ways, it may make the transaction more secure because the dealer goes to scan the license and the license won't scan. That might be a sign that there's a problem with the license. So it's a kind of a win-win. That it's faster, more accurate, and it might also help with the security of the sale. So we're trying to drive in a direction that is more efficient and in line with 21st century technology.
Okay. And so I know there's also been an effort here to, I don't know, I guess reading the rule, it's not necessarily something that you're changing in terms of what was already legal, but maybe creating a process that would provide a greater level of comfort to licensed gun dealers around non-over-the-counter sales. And this one seems like a pretty substantial potential change for the industry and for gun buyers. Can you explain what the law is and what you're trying to do with this particular rule when it comes to sales that you don't have to go into a gun store to make? I know there's already been some precedent for this.
Okay, we got to get somebody out there on the YouTube side at Dragon F1092. Yeah, we understand all this. You're preaching to the choir, man. Trust me on this. We understand all the unconstitutionality and all this other stuff, but until somebody gets it where it's litigated and struck down, this is what we're stuck with. Or we get the House and Senate to overturn these laws. This is what we're stuck with, which is basically what later on the chief counsel that's being interviewed here actually says later in the interview. He's not exactly in favor of all these laws. But it's either we have somebody who's theoretically on our side or somebody like with the Biden administration who's going to smack us with a bullwhip every time somebody gets in the slightest little error in a form, like what the Biden administration did when they were stripping FFLs of their license to sell. So, again, you're preaching to the choir, man. You're preaching to the choir.
And with suppressors or silencers, where you can purchase those and have them shipped to your house without having to go into a brick and mortar store. But that's not something we've seen commonly done throughout the gun industry with regular sales of handguns or rifles. So can you explain what the law says and what this rule actually does?
Yeah, happy to. I think there's been a lot of misinformation on both sides on this one. So in 1968, when Congress passed the Gun Control Act was largely a ban on mail order sales, particularly interstate mail order sales. But the Gun Control Act has a provision which is codified in Section 922, subsection C, that says,
this part is important. Pay attention to this. This blew my mind when he says what he says here.
A dealer may sell a firearm by mail to someone who doesn't appear on his premises if the sale is otherwise allowed by law, and there's a procedure for it, which is that you have to contact the principal local law enforcement officer of the person's jurisdiction, get notice that notice has been received, and then wait 7 days. And at that point, you can ship the firearm. So this has been around since 1968. The big change came with the Brady Act in 1994.
Did you catch that? The ability, to purchase firearms and have them shipped to your door has been in place since 1968. And what he says with the Brady part coming up makes that even better.
So the Brady Act said that as part of a normal retail sale, the dealer has to verify the purchaser's identification. And at that point, ATF, with no analysis, just assumed, I guess, that to verify the purchaser's identification, you had to be on the federal firearms licensee's place of business, that there was no way to do it remotely. And maybe that was true in 1994. So mail order sales continued after 1994, but they had to be ones that were exempt from the Brady Act. And so the two principal categories of sales that are exempt from the Brady Act are first National Firearms Act transactions, and you referenced that the suppressor companies were doing this. And the second is jurisdictions that have permits, and if those permits meet certain federal minimum standards, that they will deny the permit to anyone whose possession of a firearm would violate the law, and an authorized government official is required by law to do an adequate background check. Then those permits exempt the individual from the Brady Act. And so if a person had a Brady exempt permit, the dealer, if allowed by state and local law, could also transfer the firearm in a non-over-the-counter sale. And the 4473 used to have a Part 1 and Part 2, where Part 1 was for over-the-counter sales, and Part 2 was for non-over-the-counter sales. And eventually, I guess not enough people were using the Part 2 form, so we let that lapse. And we wrote, ATF wrote in 2013, under the Obama administration, procedures for how to use the 4473 for non-over-the-counter sales. And it is lawful for any Brady exempt transaction. So again, any transaction in which a person has a permit that qualifies, and any transaction involving firearms that are approved under the National Firearms Act.
Okay. Did you catch that? This whole time, since 68 and 94, we should have been able to purchase firearms and have them shipped to our front doors. But because the 4473 was only able to be done on paper, nobody was doing it. So the ATF took that part off of the 4473 and went with only in-person sales. This whole time, we could have been having stuff shipped from an FFL in our state to our front door. This whole time. As long as you had a permit that was one of the ones that there's another list that the ATF has up there, the Brady permit chart. Basically, it's the ones where does your permit qualify as an alternative to the NICS check? If your state on that list is listed as yes, then you should have already been able to purchase firearms and had them shipped to your front door. As long as you were buying from an FFL within your state. How many people out there in the chat knew this? I know I sure as hell didn't. Did you know that? I'm guessing by your previous
I didn't.
Yeah. But if you want to know what states have that, I have that linked down in the description as well to the ATF site, the chart that they have. And it's interesting going through this. There was one area that I wasn't expecting it to apply to, but it does. That's Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico's permit qualifies as an alternative to the NICS check. As left wing as the Puerto Rican government is, that surprised me when I saw that. So even if you live on Puerto Rico, you should have been able to purchase a firearm and had it delivered to your front door under what he is just talking about.
But the caveat is that has to come from somewhere in your state, correct?
Yes, it has to be within your state. It can't be interstate. It has to be intrastate. So you say you can't find something at a local dealer there in, where are you, Emporia area?
He?
Yeah, you.
There aren't any dealers in Emporia.
Exactly.
But,
okay, perfect. So if you couldn't find something there, you could order it from Topeka or Kansas City and have it delivered to your front door.
as long as it's not Kansas City, Missouri.
Yeah.
As long as it's Kansas City, Kansas.
Yeah.
So I could order something from, say, Bass Pro, and as long as it was in stock in the Kansas City, Kansas store, they could ship it to me.
Exactly. Or an Academy or a Shills or what's the other one? Rural King, anything like that. As long as it's within your state, they can ship it to you.
So even if it did come from out of state, as long as you had it shipped to a store in state and then they mailed it to you, you'd still be good.
Mm-hmm.
because the transaction would, in fact, be taking place in state, which is the important thing.
Yeah, exactly. Which is one of the reasons why they're enacting the electronic 4473. We can fill those out on our computer at home and not have to go to the store.
And so the Obama administration put out the procedures for that in 2013. Those procedures were put out again in 2020 when the COVID pandemic had shuttered a lot of firearm stores. Now, the big change in this rule is rejecting the assumption that you can verify.
Yeah, Denny says he can get a suppressor shipped. Yeah, that's what he was just talking about. Any NFA item, you can have an SBR shipped to your front door right now without having to have the license because it's an NFA item. NFA items automatically this automatically applies to NFA items, whether you have the exempt permit or not. That was what the two things that permit it now are NFA and having that permit.
An identification document only at the licensee's place of business. And so what this rule adds to the non-over-the-counter transactions is the ability to do sales that are subject to the Brady Act. And so the rule adds elaborate procedures for how licensees are supposed to verify a person's identity. And they have to verify both the identity and the identification document. And it involves using the kind of software that people see when they do ID Me through other government services. And it also involves some video conferencing, which didn't exist in any real way in 1994. And so if you are able to verify the ID and comply with the terms of the Brady Act, we're saying you can also comply at that point with both the Brady Act and the non-over-the-counter rules. So it is an expansion of non-over-the-counter sales into transactions that are not Brady exempt. So it is an expansion from where it was in 1994. But it's also continuing a type of sale that has existed since 1968. Again, the suppressor dealers have noticed this and have relied on it. Others haven't. I don't know whether this rule will change people's conduct in the marketplace or not. There are procedures that are more laborious than going face-to-face with the gun store. There's a long waiting period, so it may or may not catch on. But the regulations are just codifying what I think the law is, which is that there's no tension between complying with the Brady Act and doing non-over-the-counter sales. And these sales are subject to all the rules of verifying IDs and running background checks. So there's not going to be any difference over-the-counter or non-over-the-counter except whether the person's physically present or not.
And Packrat brings up an interesting point. He says, I wonder if companies like PSA will establish networks like Silence Central. They would be smart to do affiliate stores, at least one affiliate store in each state, whether they open up their own store or just somebody that they partner with and have their stuff drop shipped through that FFL. You know, they have so much in stock at individual FFLs in each state and sell them their stuff that way. If they don't put individual stores themselves. I mean, they've already got how many stores in South Carolina and they got in Georgia, North Carolina too now, don't they, Gary, if I remember right?
Yeah, I think so.
So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a PSA pop up in each state, or at least the states that are going to allow this. Because remember, this is still going to be dependent on individual states, because I'm pretty sure the usual suspects probably aren't going to allow this in their states. Dragon F1092, first of all, it was one of my mods that did it because you were preaching to the choir and you kept on going. Second of all, First Amendment does not apply because we are not the government. I have a legal background. Please don't push me.
Right. So from your point of view, this was never something that was disallowed by the law. It's just something the ATF was doing through regulation effectively by not providing a path for remote verification of identity.
Then he says he bought a suppressor that was shipped to his door, and the company that was the franchisee or business partner with the seller was a pharmacy. It basically was doing drop ship out of their shop. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They could easily set up a dealer network where they drop ship. So, yeah, it wouldn't be.
That's
It
pretty
would
cool.
behoove them. Yeah, it would behoove them to do so.
In the background check process.
Correct. And again, for Brady exempt transactions, it has been allowed since 1994. So in the approximately 25 states or so where permits are, where there's an exempt permit, stores in that state can sell non-over-the-counter if it's allowed by state and local law.
I know what.
Okay, we got an idiot out there in the YouTube chat that thinks that the Bill of Rights applies to individuals doing stuff. For your information, the Supreme Court has already ruled numerous times that businesses or hosts of various live streams on things like YouTube can set whatever limits on speech they want. If my moderators felt that you needed to be quieted, you needed to be quieted. If you don't like it, go watch something else. This is the last time I'm telling you. If I have to tell you again, you're not going to be talking at all. So behave yourself. Yes, from the government. I'm not the government. My moderator is not the government, and you were warned.
The criticisms we've seen of this is sort of the idea that it could create, I think, Smoking Gun, which is run by Everytown with a gun control group, opposed to a lot of the rules that you've put forward. They've likened this to an Amazon for guns, and that it could create something along those lines that a company could, sell online. I mean, I suppose obviously online sales have existed for a long time. They've just tended to require people to go to a local dealer to pick up the gun. They couldn't get the gun shipped directly to their door after the transaction. Now this, I think you mentioned there's a waiting period. There's like a 7-day waiting period that's attached to this sort of non-over-the-counter sale, right? So not exactly like buying something from Amazon. I mean, do you reject that comparison? Like Amazon guns, does this open up the door to something like that in real life, or do you see it as something entirely different?
I reject the pejorative connotation of it. I mean, this is, I think, paradigmatically what we are doing here right now. The nature of the marketplace has changed. You cannot expect the gun industry to operate in a 1960s style marketplace in the 2020s. Markets have moved online. Gun sales have moved online. And yes, people have to go to the store personally to pick it up in most cases. But that's not where the center of gravity is in the sale. The center of gravity in the sale is some large interstate dealer that is taking the full value of the firearm and then shipping it to a transfer dealer. But I also think this reflects ATF's rulemaking at its best. We didn't just roll back restrictions in an indiscriminate way on non-over-the-counter sales.
Okay. Pack Rat's asking about the waiting period. Does shipping time count? No. Shipping time does not count. They put the 7-day waiting period in there to give the background check and everything that gets done electronically time to get processed. Once that 7 days are up, then it ships. He explains all that.
Really button the rule up. Individuals have to go through an identity verification process. They still have to show their photo ID. They still have to establish their identity to the satisfaction of the dealer and to an external identity validation service. So in some ways, actually, it's more buttoned up than an over-the-counter sale where the person might just glance very briefly at the identification. So we didn't
Interesting.
do
Well,
this.
can you elaborate a little bit more on that point? Because that's one of the things I was wondering. Like, do you see a possibility that having non-face-to-face interactions would lead to more sales, more straw purchases, for instance, sales to somebody who isn't the person who's filling out the form? Without the in-person interaction, do you think there's a greater degree of risk that there'll be a unlawful sale made? I mean, it sounds like you're saying the opposite really is true.
I think the opposite is true. First of all, under the current system, nothing stops a straw purchaser from buying a lot of guns in somebody else's name and just telling the straw purchaser, go to the store and pick these up. The straw purchaser doesn't have to go to the store and individually select the guns.
Right.
So, you can already navigate that. Secondly, as we've mentioned, there's a lengthy waiting period. Non over-the-counter sales in some ways is not the most convenient way to buy a firearm. You have to notification goes to the principal local law enforcement officer, and then there's a 7-day waiting period. And so if you're straw purchasing, you're going to alert the local police. You have to sit there, and the waiting period in reality may go from 1 to 2 weeks, depending on whether it's electronic or mail, because the 7 days doesn't start until you get receipt confirmation back. So you're going to have a 1 to 2 week waiting period with local law enforcement being notified. It is not the way. If somebody were doing a straw purchase, I think it's a good way to get caught. So it's not, it's not some totally unregulated market that's suddenly opening up. And the other thing that's disanalogous with the Amazon marketplace is you don't get next day or 2-day delivery. There's still the procedure that has to be followed from the identity verification and the notification all the way through the waiting period. So it's a little bit clunky. It may be convenient for people in rural areas or in Alaska where that might be very far from dealers. It might also be a way to handle transactions that start over the counter, but the person gets delayed. And let's say you're at a gun show, and it's not likely that the purchaser and the dealer will be face to face anytime soon. It might be another way to handle those sort of delays, but I don't think it's a great way to purchase a firearm as a straw purchaser.
Okay. And then I know there's some rules here that deal with the import of firearms, and I'm wondering for the average consumer, the average gun buyer, if they'll see a difference in what's available.
Well, what are your thoughts? Any thoughts so far, Gary, on anything he said?
Oh, I'm just sitting here trying to visualize how it would affect me. And I mean, some of the things I've done it wouldn't have factored into, but I could definitely see some things it would. So it's very interesting. I like it.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see which would happen faster.
Uh-huh.
Say that you have a Bass Pro in your state and they have a firearm in stock. Which will be faster? If you have your local FFL doesn't have it and they have to order it for you, or putting in the electronic order and having it shipped to you from the Bass Pro. Which order would get fulfilled first? Interesting to. I wonder if I'm sure somebody's probably going
Yeah.
to do this and trying to
And a
figure
lot
it
of
out.
people, to drive an hour or two to the nearest gun shop might not be the easiest thing for them to do. And it would eliminate that need for some people to actually, find somebody to give them a ride, maybe, or something like that,
Mm,
or maybe they can't drive. There's a lot of people can't drive.
yeah, like you said, the example I gave earlier, it might just be better to wait that 7 days instead of trying to find a way to get to the gun shop,
And
especially
it's
with
kind of
gas
like this
prices.
guy says, there is no reason it can't be just as secure as it is right now.
Like Denny said, thinks that it's going to be more secure because you got to go through all these forms of identification that you may not actually go through if you went to the FFL.
Yeah. And if you try to do something shady like this guy says, they've got such a trail on you,
Yeah,
they'd get to you pretty quick.
yeah, because like when buying an NFA item, this method has to be reported to your local head of your local police department, right? Whereas you go in person, that's not reported to your chief law enforcement officer in your city, town, city, county, whatever. So the local law enforcement is going to have a record of the sale. So if you do a straw purchase and that gun comes up in a crime, you're in trouble. They're going to catch you.
Yep.
Available to them, putting aside state regulations, right? What might become available on the market due to some of these import changes that you're trying to implement here?
Our hope is that it will increase consumer availability and consumer choice. So, for example, with barrels, we used to try to trace the barrels of what the.
This is about foreign importations, but we'll get to that. We'll get back to that in a second because Denny brought up another thing. One thing it would do would drive down gun prices since you could buy outside of your zip code. It could hurt the small LGS, but he would need to specialize on service. Yeah, and you don't necessarily, going back to my example, you don't necessarily have to buy from like the Bass Pro. You could find another small FFL in your state that has a website that might have it. Like the one FFL here in town, it's a local chain store of oh, excuse me, pawn and gun shop, and they have a website where they sell themselves online. So
Could you imagine if your state had some way you could search the entire state for a particular gun and see who has it?
Mm-hmm.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Like you could pick who you buy it from.
Mm-hmm. When me and Gary were talking about Bass Pro and the big stores, we were just using those as examples. This could
Yeah, I
just
didn't even
easily
think
be
of
done.
what you just said, but yeah. Anybody. Yeah.
Yeah, this could just as easily be done with a small FFL. I would expect to see more small FFLs putting up websites for that reason, to drum up business.
Mm-hmm.
Barrel came off of before it could be imported. We stopped doing that. A barrel's a barrel. If it has a sporting use, it is a sporting barrel, even if it has another use. And in today's world, a lot of firearm parts have this kind of modularity that you can't just say this is uniformly one or the other. And so we're getting rid of a lot of the a lot of the regulatory a lot of the tying up of importation on regulatory matters that don't matter. You have the same barrel. It doesn't matter what gun it came off of. It's the same barrel, and it's either sporting or it's not. So what I think...
What he's getting at here is anybody who's ever had to buy or were buying an AK that came from overseas or a parts kit. Usually the parts kit doesn't come with the barrel because the barrel came off of a full auto. And that doesn't qualify as a sport purpose under the current rules and laws. So even if you got like a semi-auto AK from, say you were ordering one that was made by Koger over in Romania, the ones that make the Wasser, they would have to send those over here with a single stack magazine because they weren't allowed to import them into the United States as a double stack magazine. Likewise, like I was just saying, you couldn't buy a barrel off of an AK if it had come off of one that was a full auto rifle, which is stupid because that same barrel is the same barrel that's used in a semi-auto. There's nothing different about the barrel. But as long as that came off of a full auto rifle, you couldn't purchase it if it was imported. This is going to change that.
Consumers will find is an increase in parts that are available. I think domestic manufacturers may be able to take imported parts and build firearms that they haven't previously been able to build. The Attorney General also asked ATF to do a study on what the importation rules should be, and we are looking at that. And depending on the results of that study, it may affect which firearms are importable. So I think we are moving. Overall, I think we're moving in a direction to get rid of burdensome regulations that serve no purpose and limit consumer choice.
Pack Rat brought up, wondered about buying from Walmart. Walmart's already does their 4473s and background checks electronically, so Walmart could easily set this up to where they could sell them online. They already got the system in place. All they got to do is put them on their website. And Denny says, you can already buy a CNR sent to your door. Sees no reason why not to have any other firearm sent to your address. Yeah. Says it thinks this will allow for greater opportunities for those in the middle of nowhere, which is exactly what Mr. Leider said here, that this will open it up for people who live in rural areas, or, like you in the middle of the oil fields in Texas, or somebody out in the middle of nowhere up in Alaska. So even Gary, who doesn't have an FFL in his general vicinity, could order from someplace and have it in Kansas and have it shipped to him. So yeah, there's definitely places where it might be more benefit than others, but anyway you look at it, it's a good thing. And this is something that we should have been able to do already, which is the worst part, except for the fact that the Obama administration got rid of that part of the 4473. And nobody knew about it before then anyway. So, yeah, it's crazy. We should have been able to do this the entire time, and nobody knew, except for the suppressor companies, apparently. Crazy, man. Crazy.
Okay. Now, to another rule here that, a lot of these rules I see, and they appear to streamline the process of gun buying or modernize it in a lot of ways. One that I could, that's gotten some criticism already for potentially going the opposite direction, making it a little bit more confusing for the average person to buy a gun. It deals with gender identity on ATF forms, and this will apply as well, I believe, to the background check form, which currently has 3 options, right? Male, female, and non-binary. Now, this rule is going to remove that non-binary option. And
Packer says, the point is, how many Walmarts are there? A lot. There's almost as many Walmarts as there are Dollar Generals. So, yeah.
It's going to instruct, the instructions in it are that people have to put down their gender at birth. And so I wanted to go through the practical side of this. This is now the rule that has the most comments on it among this package at the moment. I know that some gun rights groups in the gay community have already spoken out with concerns on this, Pink Pistols being one of them. The concern, I believe, stems from the idea that this could be some sort of backdoor trans gun ban. And one, let's just start with that. Is this a backdoor trans gun ban? I'll just ask you directly.
No, not at all. I don't even see how that could possibly be the case.
Okay.
It's not at all. It's just a matter of coordinating which sex somebody selects on the form.
Mm-hmm. And so I guess that gets into the next question, which is more of a practical question about how this is going to work when this form is changed and people have to go and actually fill it out. It's particularly people from the 13 states that allow you to have non-binary as your gender identity on your state license. If somebody is going to a store in one of those states and they go to fill out the form and it doesn't have that option, I believe that's how this option.
Well, around Texas anyway, Denny. This doesn't apply countrywide. It's within your state. You can do this within your state. If it crosses state borders, then it would have to go to an FFL still. But if you're buying from an FFL within your state, then it can be shipped to you.
Came about in the first place. The industry asked what should be done in these circumstances, and the ATF added an option so people could put non-binary. What's going to happen now? If the ID doesn't match what they put down on the form, what are dealers supposed to do? What is going to happen in that background check process?
It shouldn't change anything. If the ID doesn't match what they put down, they should still process the transaction. For the FBI, having it on biological sex is important because that is how they organize the underlying databases that support the National Instant Criminal Background Check System. So, it's not helpful to the FBI if you have states going in different directions and you have different answers when their databases are keyed to biology. To give an answer that's not keyed to biology doesn't help them. Now, the FBI's background check system is very robust, regardless of which sex people put down. The name check will run both ways, but the information does help them a little bit at the margins, discern who is who. But again, they're checking based on biological sex, so it's helpful to them to have that. It implements the president's executive order on defending women, and it also helps answer the dealer. I mean, with the current change in regulations, people may have multiple forms of ID. They may use a passport and another form of ID to prove residency. And under the current system, you could have somebody with a passport that says male and a secondary ID that says female, and you'll still have the same coordination question of what should go on the form. And the regulation answers what should go on the form. And there's no basis for denying a purchase either by the dealer or by NIC simply because there's a mismatch between the identification and the form. I know this has gotten batted around online, but it's simply not true. The dealer should just go forward with the transaction.
Yeah, in case you didn't catch that, basically the reason why they're doing sex at birth is because that's what the NIC system uses. It's basically just to make it easier on the FBI when they're putting together the NIC system. Yeah, people, and I've seen people on X and whatnot saying, "Oh, this is going to be just like what he was asked, a backdoor trans ban somehow." It's no, it's not. That Pack Rat's asking, wonder how many Walmarts, but no FFL in the area. Well, you got to remember, Walmart will only sell certain firearms anyway. So unless they change their policy, you'd only be able to buy certain types of rifles and shotguns from Walmart anyway. And Walmart won't act as a standard FFL for receiving. So I wonder if they would even put firearms on their website to sell anyway. I mean, they, like you said, not all Walmarts sell them. The Walmart up the road here in Maryland doesn't, but the one here in town does. So, yeah, that's another thing to consider too with where Walmart's concerned. Walmart's not the super Second Amendment friendly store. So, but if they see money, you never know, right?
Well, I'd like to think that's true. We'll see. There's liable to be a lot of public pressure coming on after, this all comes to place and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Is this company going to allow, because some will, some won't, and then they're going to catch grief from, the pressure groups and stuff like that.
Right.
We all know who they are.
Mm-hmm. But I think stores like Bass Pro and Academy probably aren't going to give a shit because they already sell online. Just instead of sending to a store, they'll be sending to you directly, as long as they're in your state.
A lot of farm stores as well. You mentioned Rural King. There's plenty others around here too.
Yeah. Who knows? We might see Tractor Supply start selling guns. Some of them sell saves and ammo. You never know. If they can make money off of it, you never know.
Yeah, that's another thing. Are they going to collect a transfer fee for this? That's kind of How's that going to work?
Well, there would be no transfer fee to put in. You would be the store you purchase from online would be the store that's filing your paperwork. There would be no transfer fee. It wouldn't be getting shipped to a third-party FFL.
I'm sure they could come up with some sort of shipping fee or something like that. They could,
but I mean,
it'd be cheaper to walk in the store versus, obviously they're going to charge you for shipping.
Yeah. I'm talking about the standard transition, the transfer fee like we pay now. That's because we're paying for them to do the paperwork. If the initial seller is doing the paperwork, you're not going to have it shipped to an FFL to where you're going to have to worry about paying that second FFL a transfer fee. Yeah, I don't see Amazon doing it either, Denny. But Amazon does sell firearms accessories. So who knows?
Well, they do and they don't. A lot of people get by with saying, well, they work on airsoft guns too. It's like, yeah, sure they do.
But Jeff Bezos has been going more and more to the right lately. So I don't know. That could be That could be an interesting one. Amazon set up local warehouses in state where the FFL is registered to a local warehouse. It wouldn't be outside the realm of possibility. Not saying it's going to happen, but theoretically it could. If they think there's going to be enough money to be made in it. And Amazon has told some left groups where to stick it lately. So who knows? I'm not saying I believe they would. But in theory, they could. This is going to open up a lot of possibilities in different areas. And again, I don't think every state's going to be able to do this either, because I don't think Maryland's going to allow it. I don't think California's going to allow it. I don't think New York's going to allow it. New Jersey, Massachusetts, Illinois. I guarantee you they got laws being written right now to stop this in those states. Gary says online gun shows. Yeah. Packard says online auctions. Yeah, that would be entirely possible. If you got a auction house in your state that sells firearms, yeah. Of course, some of those online auctions, you can already buy firearms and have them shipped directly to you if it's an antique. So, anyway.
Okay. And is the ATF going to offer specific guidance or training on that point to dealers so they know what to do in that circumstance?
Yes, and we are currently working through some of the hard cases ourselves. I mean, you might have a case where somebody does check the box in terms of gender identity, is of a different sex, and then the question is going to be, what does the dealer report to the FBI? Because again, the FBI is classifying people based on biological sex. So we have to work through exactly what the mechanics are when those situations arise. But we will be giving guidance as the time comes. And keep in mind too, in terms of these, all of the rules just about are proposed rules. They are not final rules. So we're not in a position to give guidance yet because we still have to take the comments in, finalize the rules in light of those comments, and then roll it out to the industry. So we're not in a position yet where we've made binding decisions on exactly how to operate in the new environment.
Now, Denny brings up Gunbroker. Well, the thing about Gunbroker is most of those are all either individuals selling or FFLs. So if the FFL in your area is on Gunbroker in your state, yeah, you'd be able to buy from them via Gunbroker. The one FFL here does Gunbroker. Now that you bring that up. So one has their own website and the other one has sales on Gunbroker. I could buy from either one of those online if I wanted to and have it shipped to my house. even though the one is literally within walking distance. So it'd just be easier for me to go there and pick it up from them. But yeah, I mean, theoretically, yeah, you could, or not theoretically, in actuality, yeah, you could, as long as the FFL on Gunbroker's in your state, you could purchase that way from Gunbroker. Yeah.
Okay. And to that point, these are 90-day comment periods for most of these, right? Like,
Correct.
how long should people expect before most of this package is actually, finalized and put into effect?
After 90 days, we have to examine the comments, respond to the comments, and then finalize the rule. That process will take a considerable amount of time. I hesitate to estimate exactly, because a rule that has few comments and is a simple rule and doesn't require much change or further justification can probably be implemented quite quickly. A rule that has many comments and needs some amendment and some further justification, it may take months to go through the process. So I hesitate to give an estimate, even though it's May, or it was April of 2026 before we got the rule package out, and it's been something that we've been working on for a long time. It's not a lot goes into drafting these rules. There's a lot of process behind.
Yeah. In case you guys didn't catch what he was just saying, basically he's saying don't go flooding them with a bunch of messages on one single rule, because I've seen people do this. They'll go out and they'll put message after message after message all on one rule. You do that, and you're slowing down the processing time. And it's going to take longer for the rule to be implemented. So if you're going to comment once. You don't have to do multiple comments on one rule. We want these put in place as quickly as possible, not strung out for months on end, like what he was just saying could happen if they get too many comments that they have to filter through.
In the scenes, I think there was concern from Second Amendment groups that ATF wasn't doing anything for the first year of the President Trump's administration. That simply wasn't true. There was tremendous effort happening behind the scenes, and that effort will have to get duplicated when we go to finalize the rules. So I urge everybody to be patient. There will probably be a trickling of rules that start out several weeks but go many months and possibly a year or longer. But we will finalize as quickly as we can.
Yeah, and I think that's important for people to understand too. Is the rulemaking process? It tends to take a while. It's not an overnight thing. Certainly, even though the comment period might only be 90 days, it can still be quite a while before a rule actually goes into effect, because the comment period is not the end.
No, we don't. It's not like we just say, "Oh, comment period's over. Let's finalize." We read the comments, we take them seriously, and we make adjustments as appropriate based on the comments.
Yeah. So another rule that I wanted to discuss.
Denny says, yes, now when they are considering the brace rule, the request was for comments on the rule, which did push the ruling out for months, but they did not change their course of action based on comments. No, they're changing the rule based on court proceedings, which they're about to get into. I think that's what he's getting ready to bring up now is the brace rule.
Real quick, and get the ATF's perspective on why you went this direction. Deals with the record retention rules.
Oh, record retention,
right?
But he does get to the brace rule.
These have just been changed for dealers. Things like keeping.
This is the part that you brought up earlier, Denny, about the electronic records and everything. That's what he's getting ready to get into now. I think after this is when he gets into the brace rule. I know he gets to the brace rule, so we'll get to that in here in a little bit.
Background checks, or for out of business records that the ATF itself maintains. The ATF had, I think, under the Biden administration, correct me if I'm wrong here, but had extended the length of time that you need to retain these background check forms to be essentially infinite. Your new rule proposes capping that back to 20 to 30 years record retention. Now, we've seen criticism, I think, from both ends on this, to be fair. Like Gun Owners America, for instance, wants you guys to just completely get rid of your out-of-business record database or collection of records, whereas every town and some of the other gun control groups think that going back to the lower deadline or the length of time is going to hinder law enforcement efforts, for instance, around gun tracing. Can you explain your point of view, the ATF's point of view on this, why you picked 20 to 30 years, why that's the right time frame, how this record keeping even works, and what the purpose of it is from your point of view, and what the statutes involved are?
Yeah, so we haven't selected 20 to 30 yet as any final term. We're soliciting comments on it, and this is our opening proposal. Basically, we use the records to trace guns that are used in crime. We use them from active licensees, and then we have the out-of-business records center, which holds the records from people who have surrendered their federal firearms license. And so there is tension between having records that allow us to do this tracing and the privacy interests of gun owners, as well as practical considerations for dealers having to store these records. And so we are trying to thread the needle on these different things. Now, there is still a fair amount of tracing that happens past 5 and 10 years. And I've seen GOA say, for example, they either want nothing, or if they have to have something, maybe it should be 5 or 7 or 10, because the average time to crime is around 7 years.
Right.
But the reality is there's still a lot of tracing that happens at 10 years and at 15 years. And so we are trying to figure out what the best balance is between legitimate law enforcement needs and gun owner privacy. And again, the fact that the dealers have to store it. So what we were looking at with 20 to 30 years is this is an area where the number of traces drops off and the value of the trace starts to drop off. Because even if you came back with a record, the record is going to be of a purchase a long time ago. We also looked at the fact.
Yeah, like he was saying, the average trace time, and this is when I was in school, even about a decade ago now. 7 years was the average amount of time that a gun might be traced up to. Again, that's average. One case we looked at in the forensics class I took was 30 years later. So, and like you said, they're trying to weigh these actions between privacy and law enforcement needs. And if you want a shorter time frame, this is one that you should go out and comment on. Okay, if you're worried about how long the federal government will have your FFLs if they go out of business, they're 4473 on you. Go out there and go out there and make a comment on this. If you go back to the episode a couple weeks ago, I have the link to that on that episode in the description page. So, yeah, go out there and do that and get your comments in, folks. But remember, only do one comment per rule so that it doesn't bog down the implementation process.
That ATF had justified in its previous rule in the Biden administration why 20 years wasn't enough. And then when you go back and try to reverse a previous policy, you have to explain what prompted the change and why the previous analysis should not hold. So it's not easy to flip rules back and forth. It requires some additional justification. Now, also keep in mind that if this gets litigated, it will likely get litigated in the DC circuit, which has appointees who will probably not be favorable from the Second Amendment perspective. It has a majority of judges that likely believe in a narrower interpretation of the Second Amendment. And so if you're in a position where you're not only reversing previous guidance, but going so far back, let's say 5 or 10 years, where you destroy the ability to do a majority of your traces, I think there's a good chance that rule would get invalidated as arbitrary and capricious. The invalidation of the rule would mean that the Biden era rule of indefinitely will hold forever, or not forever, but at least until the rulemaking process could be started again from scratch. And I think a much better approach is to say, okay, what's the strongest justification that we can have to limit the number of years that will hold up in court? There's nothing that stops a future attempt to lessen the number of years either. So, I mean, let's say we do settle on 20 years and a future administration wants to go to 10 or 15 years. They can try, and if it holds up, fine. If it doesn't hold up, at least they will be back at 20 years or 25 years. They will not fall back to an indefinite term.
Now, reading between the lines on this one, I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the Trump administration, we see another rule decreasing the time period that these records are kept again. What do you think, Gary? Is that what it sounds like to you?
I certainly hope so.
Yeah, Packer says he forget who says it, but this is only the first round of changes. Yeah, but, which is basically what he just alluded to.
So, we have to, in selecting the precise number of years, we have to balance these competing considerations. The last thing I will mention that I think is getting lost in the debate is the previous rule was 20 years if the dealer stayed in business for the full 20 years. If the dealer went out of business, it would go to the out of business record center and be held forever at that point. The proposal is not just limiting the records that are held by the licensee. It's also proposing to limit, for the first time ever, the length of time by which the out of business record center will hold those out of business records. And so if we start destroying records 20 or 25 years after we receive them, the idea that that is some kind of backdoor registry will be totally nullified, because once the records are destroyed, there's no ability to recreate them. And I know GOA and some other groups have been concerned what would happen if you applied AI to the out of business records.
Right.
And the answer to that will be nothing if those old records don't exist anymore. And so I think that has gotten lost a little bit in the noise about the specific number of years that we are talking about for the first time.
Personally, I want to know what you would do with AI to apply it to those records anyway.
I'm not real sure what they're after, unless they're talking about more character recognition and stuff like that. Still.
Yeah, I don't get what, if GOA is making that comment, I don't know what it would pertain to.
No.
Time ever, reducing the time period by which the out of business record center holds these records.
Okay. And so from your perspective, you're trying to balance the usefulness of these records for firearms tracing and law enforcement purposes against concerns around creating a database of gun owners, effectively. That's what the central concern of groups like GOA and other gun rights activists is, that you have this out of business record cache that is, I believe they say it's up to 1 billion records. First off, is that accurate as far as how many records are in that cache?
Yes. I mean, it's not the exact number, but yes, it's a high number.
All right, Denny, we'll see you later. And if you're worried, if you want to catch the brace rule part, you can always go back and watch it. Because I know you made a comment about the brace rule, but yeah, he is going to be getting to that. But yeah, if you got to get to bed for work, that's understandable. You can always go back and watch it later. So have a good night.
And it's now my understanding is that's not all like transactions. It's not all background check records necessarily. Like, can you just give whatever insight you have off? I understand this maybe off the top of your head, but what exactly is held in these records? I know it includes background check forms, but there's other records in there as well, is my understanding.
Yeah, it's mostly the 4473s, which today are the background check records. They weren't always that way. They were often just the record of sale pre-Brady Act. They're also dealers are required to have what are called acquisition disposition books, where the firearm comes in, they record where they got it from, and then to whom they sold or transferred the weapon. And so those books are there as well. And again, it's not searchable by name. It's not organized by name and address. They sent these records get scanned in. They're only searchable by serial number. So if you lost your gun, we'd have no way to tell you what gun you had. We can only search by serial number if a crime gun comes in.
Right.
But that's
But obviously
basically
the concern is having a digital database of all those records. It could be made to be searchable in the future, I guess, is one of the main concerns, and that's why they don't want the records there at all. But you're saying one of the things this rule would do is remove the oldest of those records altogether from the ATF's side of things, which the goal is to balance those two competing interests, right?
Yeah, and it's not just those two. It's also a burden on dealers. Dealers have to rent warehouses or external storage site to store them. A lot of dealers still operate on paper. And paper is heavy and takes up a lot of space. And 20 years of paper takes up a lot of space. 40, 50, 80 years of paper.
Yeah, there was a local gun shop in one area a buddy of mine worked at, and he asked for if I could help him with clearing out the paperwork to get everything together to get to the ATF, because the 4473 will boxes upon boxes upon boxes upon boxes upon boxes of nothing but 4473s. It's insane the amount of 4473s. Most of the ones that they had were in a self-storage facility, not in the store itself. They were at a self-storage facility that was owned by the owner of the gun shop. And we went there, and it was one of the indoor ones, so it was secure and everything, had armed security and whatnot. And we get there, he opens up the door, and it looked like a smaller version of the scene at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, where they're putting the Ark in the warehouse. That's what this looked like. This box is full of 4473s. It was insane, the amount of 4473s that were in that place. And that was just a little small town FFL. Can you imagine? I can just imagine an FFL that's been operating in a major city for decades, how many that they would have to have saved up. There's been 4473 has been in place since what was that, 68 that put the 4473 in place, or was that 94? I don't remember.
I think it was 68. I'm not sure though.
Yeah, but, I mean, like he's saying, there's probably gun shops out there that have a warehouse full of nothing but 4473s.
You have a corporation that goes on indefinitely. It takes up that much more space. And it's heavy. At one point, we were reinforcing the floors in the out of business record center to hold all this paper. And dealers go through the same thing. So there are real costs to holding these records forever that are not just the privacy interests. And so we're trying to balance all of that.
Right. And you mentioned here sort of the...
Packrat said it was 68. Yeah, there's going to be stores that have been in operation since then that are going to have a whole hell of a lot of these things laying around.
Taking into consideration with this rulemaking, the sort of legal challenges that may come, and I think that
going back, what is it, 20 years right now for a business, or is it? No, it's unlimited because of Biden. But before the Biden rule, it was 20 years that they had to store them.
20 or 25, I can't remember.
Yeah. So yeah, you're still going back before Biden. So we'll say 2020. Go back 25 years, you're going back to 1995. That's still a lot of 4473s for a big chain store.
Transfers well into the next rule I wanted to discuss, which is, obviously we saw the Biden administration didn't issue nearly as many rules from the ATF during the 4 years in office, but they did take some very big swings at extending the ATF's authority into new areas, or things like the pistol brace rule, for instance, which is one of the things I want to ask about here. Now, that this was
See if Denny would just waited
a pretty big regulatory swing in that the effect of it was to essentially reclassify any pistol braced gun, not necessarily literally, but by implication, I would say, from the way the rule was written, as a short barrel rifle that's regulated under the National Firearms Act, and say that anyone who owned those type of firearms would have to register those guns or face federal prosecution potentially. Now, they did do a sort of amnesty period where you could register for free, but this rule that you have proposed now is undoing that pistol brace rule from the Biden administration era. And but at the same time, it doesn't necessarily go in the opposite direction. Obviously, you could have gone here and said, well, actually, any firearm that has a pistol brace on it isn't a short barrel rifle. And you didn't do that here. And I wonder if that has to do with this philosophy you're talking about taking into account what might happen in court if you do try to take these big swings. And did that play into how you decided some of these rules, like the pistol brace rollback, or were there other considerations that took a bigger part of your thinking?
There are many considerations that go into the rule. Legal risk is one of the considerations. We write the rules to minimize the legal risk that they will be judged invalid. But it's also the case that there is no exact standard for what a pistol brace is. Manufacturers can call anything a pistol brace. The statute says a firearm is a rifle or shotgun if it's designed and intended to be fired from the shoulder. That's right. What Congress wrote. That's what ATF has to live with as a statutory definition. And so every time we look at one of these products, we have to ask, is it the kind of product that is designed and intended to be fired from the shoulder? And if we wrote a rule that said anything that was labeled a brace is not designed and intended to be fired from the shoulder, no matter what the design specifications were, that would likely get struck down. I don't think courts would, taken to the most extreme, I don't think courts would look at a product that where there was no question it was designed and intended to be fired from the shoulder and say, oh, well, as long as you label it a brace, it's okay. So we have to operate here very carefully.
Yeah, he's got a definite point here. And I've said it before. Some of these blade style braces are really pushing that limit. Especially if you remember, I don't remember if you remember this or not, Gary, the one company that put out the recoil pad for the blade style brace, and they got in trouble for that one. Do you remember when that one happened?
No, I don't remember that.
Yeah, basically it was a piece of rubber that clipped on the end of the Shockwave blade brace, essentially turning it into a full-fledged stock. And they thought they said it was to protect it during transit. Yeah, that they got in trouble for that one.
Right now in this area and in a number of other areas like engaged in the business, we are trying to get rid of ATF's attempt at making law. We are just going with what Congress passed. I think it's not, for many in the industry, what Congress passed is not completely satisfactory, because in this area, what Congress passed is a standard. It's not a rule like a rifle barrel has to be 16 inches or it has to be registered under the National Firearms Act.
Yeah,
this is in the nature of
it seems like we went from an area, a gray area, in large part due to what the statute actually reads, which is a bit ambiguous, to with both in the business rule and the pistol brace rule, which you are walking back now, to a more definitive regulation, but one that went to perhaps the strictest possible interpretation of those statutes. And now, after
no, Packrap, FRT has been adjudicated not to be a machine gun, so I don't expect to see a rule from the from the ATF on that when there was a court that said that those aren't machine guns?
To be fair, those rules ran into a lot of legal trouble, which, as you cite in your description of why you're going this direction in the rulemaking, and now we're headed back to gray areas, right? So I guess especially for pistol brace, I know a lot of people are going to want to know how ATF intends to regulate that area of the market, given that the rule now has us back to this ambiguous language from the statute that leads to a bit of a gray area. What's your approach going to be? I mean, can you say at this point, before this rule is finalized, or will we get? I know they started with like a point system in the previous rule, and then they scrapped that. What's your intention on that front?
I mean, the point system illustrates the problem precisely. The law is a standard designed and intended to be fired from the shoulder. There's no easy way to mechanically translate a standard like that into hard and fast rules that when you get to a certain number of points, it is automatically in one category or another. And right now, what we are doing...
Yeah, if you guys remember the Biden point system, if you had an optic and a flashlight and an angled foregrip, and you had not one of the blade style braces, but a SB Tactical, the kind that actually straps to your forearm, that made having that flashlight and that optic and that angled foregrip made it a rifle, which is silly.
Doing is we are taking firearms in, we are examining them, and we are examining them in reference to the legal standard that Congress passed. And there are easy cases on both sides. There are hard cases in the middle. We are doing the best that we can. There's always the possibility Congress will come in the future and add clarification. That would certainly be nice if Congress did that. But in the interim, we are operating with the law that Congress passed. No more, no less.
So is that going to be like guidance letters? I know one of the common practices for a gun company that's making a new product to send it into the ATF for you guys to look at and issue a guidance letter. That's how a lot of things were done in the pistol brace area before the previous rule. Obviously, that led to kind of contradictory letters at times.
Contradictory letters is an understatement. It also led to companies thinking they could take somebody else's letter and apply it to their product. So, yeah, you got to remember the way the ATF operates. I believe he touches on this. The way the ATF operates now with the letters is they apply only to the product that they are addressed towards. But a lot of these brace manufacturers back in when they were first starting to come out with these things, SB Tactical put their brace letter online. Next thing you know, everybody and their mother's taking SB Tactical's letter and saying, "Oh, look, this shows that our product works."
Across the years, that I think roiled a lot of people in the industry and among owners of these types of firearms. Is that essentially how the basic process works? I mean,
it's going to undergo some change.
Okay.
So regulations are not the only area where ATF is changing. ATF is undergoing change in its internal processes. And you're right that a lot of firearm regulation happened through private classification letters, which sometimes were contradictory. That era is coming to an end. You will see a lot more ATF rulings where we start to describe significant new products and make public rulings that have what the conclusion is and why we reach that conclusion, have that available to the public. We have posted a few of those online. There will be more coming as we get novel types of cases, but we are trying to do this in a way that is more transparent and justified and not done behind closed doors with private letters with the public not knowing where the lines are.
Okay. And speaking of, as we wrap up here, because I appreciate you spending the time to go over some of these rules and answer some of the critiques. I appreciate you doing that. but let's. I wanted to talk a little bit about what might be coming down the line. And when you wrote a piece for us, one of the suggestions that you made was there's a lot of area in the sporting purpose regulations that ATF could work within. And I know during the announcement of this package, the acting Attorney General Todd Blanche specifically mentioned the idea of doing more regulation around sporting purposes exceptions. So should we expect sporting purposes rulemaking to come in, whether it's in regards to the imports of certain kinds of firearms, or even I know there's the NFA has some sporting purposes language in it. What should we expect? And is sporting purposes the only thing that you're still working on? My understanding is you've got more rules coming beyond just this particular package.
We're working on quite a bit. Sporting purposes is one. The Attorney General ordered us to do that. I don't have any announcements for you right now other than we are studying it in accordance with his directive. And once we reach conclusions, we will make them public. But again, we are studying it. We are studying it consistent with the president's executive order on preserving the Second Amendment. So we will hopefully have news as conclusions of those studies get reached. We are not done the regulatory process. There's still a tremendous amount that's being worked on. As much as we had to indulge the patience of the public in getting these rules out, we were still racing to the finish line of getting those 34 rules done. And there are still rules that didn't make it. So we are, as Director Sakata noted in his testimony yesterday, we are still reviewing the full range of regulations that we have in accordance with the president's directives, and we will make proposals for changes for regulations that unduly burden individuals' Second Amendment rights.
All right. Well, hey, I appreciate you doing this. I appreciate you coming on and being willing to answer questions for us and give us additional clarity on the ATF's point of view on this regulatory package, and that it's not going to be the end of these regulation changes. So thank you once again for joining us. If people want to follow along a bit closer what the ATF is up to and what you're working on as Chief Counsel over there, how can they do that?
Best place is to go to our website, atf.gov. We've been hiring in our public and government affairs department, and so I think you will see a lot more outreach to the public as we make changes, and a lot more updates to the website to make it user friendly and readable.
All right. Well, appreciate you doing this, and we'll have to have you back on again in the future, perhaps around maybe when some of this rulemaking hits the final stages, or when you have some new rule announcements. But I appreciate you doing this, and I think that's all the time we have this week. We will see you guys.
What do you think, Gary? Anything stand out to you?
It's just a promising sounding language coming from the ATF. It's not anything that's going to instantaneously. It's kind of like you said, it will take a while for things to change and stuff like that. But it's the first promising thing we've heard on that front for, I'd say, years now.
Mm-hmm.
So there's reason to be optimistic now. Is there still reason to be pessimistic? Always. I mean, until there's not a problem, there's a problem. But at least, there's maybe light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. Like you said, they're not done. They're still going through even more and more stuff. So, and simplifying other things.
Imagine a governmental agency that actually makes decisions that make sense.
Mm-hmm.
That's been something we've all dreamed of for years and years and years. It actually could work,
Yeah.
What a concept.
Yeah, and he rightfully passed the buck on the brace rule to Congress, because they are entirely responsible for that, because their writing, their rule is entirely vague.
Oh yeah.
The fact that they're ruling back the Biden rule is promising, and considering the decision that they're doing with going with the barrel rule for the sporting rifles and whatnot, with what was brought up at the end about sporting firearms, I think we're going to see some changes there, because, like I was saying earlier, if you import an AK from Europe, you have to import it as a single stack magazine, and then have gunsmiths that work for your company open that up to take the double stack magazine, because they cannot import them currently as a double stack. They can only deport them as a single stack, because under the way the rule's written, it has to take a single stack magazine to be a sporting use rifle, which is silly. It also has to have a thumb stock. You can't have a standard stock on it. That has to be changed once you get it in house. That's why, if you look back a few years, after they put all those rules in place around the time of the Clinton assault weapons ban, you went from being able to import an AK that looked like an AK to an AK that had a freaking Monte Carlo stock on it,
Right.
and the magazine not in the right place, or the fire control group. And if you wanted to look back to where an AK should look like, I'm talking about the Russian AKs, the Saigas, you had to have a gunsmith go back and do what was called debanning it. Packrat said he looks at it this way: it's not everything we want, but it's a good start. It's a start. The way he's making it sound is the ATF is doing what they can from their end, but a lot of this is law that they have to deal with. And his point is that the ATF has been overstepping and trying to change law to fit the way they want. And his job right now is to go back and fix all of that before they can start looking at other things. So that was what I took away from that, is that because I believe it was Packrat said that this guy was the president of a gun rights organization. I think he said the Rocky Mountain one, which is the one out in Colorado, that's fighting all their anti-gun nonsense out there. So he's got a busy workload, let's say. Oh, excuse me. But yeah, I think that's the biggest takeaway reading between the lines, is they got a lot to do to fix what was done by the prior administration and get it sorted out. Packrat Bit said, "Yeah, that is right." Okay. About the him being the former head of the Rocky Mountain Gun Association, or whatever it was, gun owners, something along those lines. But yeah, so yeah, he's the former head of a gun rights organization, which is a good thing. I would say, have him
Yeah.
heading up the department of the ATF that deals with all the legal nonsense. So, I found the interview productive, though. Like you said, it's not, or like you said, I mean, it could be better. And like I think it was Packrat said, it's not everything, but it's a good start. It's definitely a change from what we've seen. It's not an ATF that's holding a knife to our throats like we saw under the Biden administration. It's a ATF that wants to make things easier to purchase. and open up other ways of purchasing as well. Yeah, and PAC rep brings up Harmony Dillon at the DOJ, the head of the Civil Rights Division. She's probably going to be working closely with this guy, I would assume. Her and Mr. Leider are going to be working close together, especially with the Civil Rights Division opening up that Second Amendment branch, which is already suing, surprise, Colorado. We've just talking about this guy being the former head of the Colorado gun rights organization. Well, Colorado's being sued by the DOJ's Second Amendment branch of the Civil Rights Division. So we're seeing that, and they're launching lawsuit against Virginia for their gun laws. So things are definitely changing in DC as far as their stance towards gun owners, which is what makes elections important. Because all it would take is one administration to reverse everything that's being done right now. Because none of it's being done by law; it's all being done by regulation. Because Congress ain't getting off their ass and doing anything. Hopefully, with some of the changes that are coming down the pike with Congress, with people like Brandon Herrera getting elected, then things we might start seeing some changes coming.
Yep.
And some of these senators that don't want to do anything have also lost. People entrenched rhinos have been losing their primaries, if you guys haven't noticed. So we could be seeing some changes coming down with the way the Senate's been operating too. Packrat says, you think there may have been a grudge going on there with Colorado? Maybe. Maybe. I wouldn't rule it out. Let's put it that way. Yeah, they've also said Colorado's just the first. And I think Virginia is going to be the second because that paperwork's already been filed. So, yeah, it's gonna be an interesting couple of years coming forward with the Trump administration in these states. Yes, Packer says John Cornyn lost. Yep, he was one of them that lost. And who else lost? Christ, I can't remember now. The one congressman from Kentucky lost. Can't remember his damn name right now. But yeah, there's been a few that have lost. I wish ours would have, but no. No, Capito kept. It's probably going to keep her seat, which sucks. Can firearms be sold at embassy gift shops? I would say probably not. I thought wasn't Mitch McConnell retiring? I thought he was retiring. Well, there's an old expression, barbecue. It's better late than never. And he had some bad advisors back then, so he's got a whole different group of people around him this time. He learned from that first administration, so it could have been a whole lot worse, but Biden didn't get as much done as what the left wanted him to because they were counting on Kamala to get essentially that administration extended, and it didn't happen. Packard said almost every rhino lost. Yeah, the one in Louisiana lost. One senator from Louisiana, he lost his primary. Cornyn, like you said, he was the big one. Try to remember who else. Damn it. Oh, Massey. Massey's the one that lost in Kentucky. Congressman Massey. He was a rhino and a half. He put up a good face, and then he'd always do something to stab people in the back. Fucking Rumble says, "Is there any rule? Any rule about what?" But yeah, things could get interesting, especially with the redistricting in a lot of these states that's going on now. There's going to be a lot less Democrats the way things are looking in the House of Representatives going forward. Of course, you got a couple of states where rhinos stabbed everybody, the constituents in the back. I think South Carolina is one of them on the redistricting front. Packrat says California might be getting a Republican governor. LA may be getting a Republican mayor. The Republican candidate for mayor in LA leads the polls right now. Falkman was asking, is there any rule about sales from embassies? I don't see it happening. I don't know if there's any rules, but I can't see them selling directly from an embassy. I don't think that'll be allowed. Immigration law and whatnot. I don't, the way the immigration laws are, the 922 series of rules and other issues, with over international laws and stuff concerning gun importations and whatnot. I don't see embassies doing it. It'd be nice if they rolled back the stupid regulation saying you can't have the Russian AKs anymore. Yeah, Barbecue says that sounds like an international affairs disaster. Yeah, that I just don't see it happening. But yeah, I think with this war in Ukraine supposedly coming to an end soon, I saw somebody posting about Trump saying that they're coming to a peace agreement or something with Ukraine and Russia. So if that happens, it'd be nice to see that embargo lifted on the Russian AKs and the Russian ammo and whatnot. Will that drop the price of AKs back down? Probably not, because AK. Let's be honest. Even before the Russian AK ban, prices on AKs were creeping up. What used to be a $300-400 shotgun, for example, when I bought mine before the Russian ban, was $700 at that point. So even before the Russian ban, the prices were creeping up. Packrat said Boebert introduced a bill to remove the NFA tax complete. I know I saw one story that said that they had proposed on the machine guns. I didn't see where they said all together, but I did see where one was done on machine guns, and to overturn the Hughes Amendment. So I wonder if that's part of that same bill. I forget who. I forget who it was. I saw a video on YouTube where they were saying that that a bill was proposed to remove the Hughes Amendment. I could see it passing the House. I want to hold my breath on it making it through the Senate, though, unless it's part of a budget bill. But then you got we saw what happened the last time we had get rid of any part of the NFA as part of a budget bill. Freaking Senate parliamentarian screwed everybody over on that one. Should have just told her to go fuck herself and put it in place anyway. I'm sorry. That's what should have happened. The Senate parliamentarian technically has no actual authority to do anything. Yeah, the Hughes Amendment going bye-bye would be huge.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I could see it passing the House. I don't see it coming out of the Senate. You would have to have a supermajority for that to make it out of the Senate, because you ain't going to get any Democrats to cross the aisle to vote on that. It just ain't going to happen. Now with having to have a 60-member vote, again, unless they put it on a budget bill. Marky says, but traditions. I'm assuming he's saying that in part of the Senate parliamentarian. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Altogether, I thought it was an interesting interview.
It was.
And he said the right things. I'll give him that. And he didn't seem happy with a lot of the stuff that they talked about having to fix. Like the 4473. He did not seem to be a fan of the 4473. Packrat says it may not pass this time, but who knows after the midterms. I don't think we're going to see that big of a swing in the Senate. Like I said, you'd have to have a supermajority, 60 plus, and again, unless they attach that to a budget and then ignore the parliamentarian if she sticks her nose in, I don't see it making it out of the Senate. And like I said, I don't think you're going to see that big of a swing in the Senate. The House, yeah. The House you're going to because of the new voting districts in these states. So that's going to be a big difference. Justin Grimm at their Grim Reaper reviews. He's asking if the world's problems got solved. I don't know if we solved any of the world's problems, but the ATF head legal counsel seems like a good choice by Trump. But yeah, like Barbecue said, the Senate is the hurdle. Yep, Senate is definitely the hurdle. Yeah, but as long as it's 2 senators from every state, it's going to continue to be the hurdle. Which is the way it should be. It should be 2 senators from every state, but it should be the state legislatures electing the Senate. Let's not forget, not the general population. Remember, senators were meant to represent the state, not the people. The House of Representatives were meant to represent the people. Barbecue says Rumble Store hasn't fixed their hate issue with cell phones. It
He never did
depends.
answer my question whether he installed the Rumble Studio app on his phone or not.
Yeah.
Because I'll bet you if you had the Rumble Studio app on there, it'd work.
Well, Packrat has had issues. He said he did it, then it didn't work, and I had it on my phone, and I couldn't get it to work the one time either. But that was on the old studio. I haven't tried with this new one. And who was it? Ron 2A was able to call in on his phone when I put the phone thing up to let people call in and comment that when I was testing that night, if you remember. Which I could have done tonight. That would have been interesting to take calls live. People had questions. Oh, maybe next stream we'll do that.
Yeah, but then you might have got your weirdos who were in here
Oh yeah,
earlier.
yeah. Mm-hmm. The one that I timed out for 24 hours. Like,
Uh-huh.
dude, you were warned, man. You had timed him out, and he came back and running his mouth more. And I was like, dude, behave.
Yeah, he's gonna take me to court and sue me and everything else.
Yeah, good
Good
luck
luck
with
with
that.
that, dude.
I've been sued once for moderation back when I worked for Microsoft. Guess who won? That was, good Lord. That was back during the Bush administration. Bush Jr. W. Why? Because companies and YouTube channels, Rumbles, all that kind of stuff have the right to set whatever speech limits they want in their chats. Yeah, he said he's tried reinstalling, reinstalling. It just won't work with his phone.
He should get an iPhone. It'd probably work.
I don't know what kind of phone does he have.
One of those fake phones, like you.
Uh-huh. No, I think it's pretty real. Feels real.
I'm getting a new phone this week, so
T-Mobile, since they switched over, it's offering everybody who was on U.S. Cellular new phones on the house. So I don't know if I want to change mine in. It's
I'm getting
only
a 17 Pro Max because I want to go to the bigger screen. Because
yeah.
the older I get, I think I'd enjoy a little bit more real estate on
Yeah.
my phone.
Yeah, I got a 7-inch, I think, on mine. Something like it's like 6.8, but close.
At
They
one
marketed
time,
it
I
as
wanted the
7.
smaller one, but now that I think about it, I think a bigger one might be pretty darn nice.
Yeah.
Be kind of a bridge between a phone and a tablet almost.
If the new one were a little bigger screen, I might think about it, but it's the same size screen. It's just a 2-year newer model. And they just put the same damn software that's on the new phone on my phone. So there's really not a whole lot of difference between the S24 and the S26, to be perfectly honest. Vulcan Rumble says we
Don't
need to know
forget,
who knocked
tomorrow's
the
a
gloves for.
holiday.
So, yeah. Well, Vulcan
So
Rumble.
don't plan on doing any shopping or anything tomorrow.
Yeah. Vulcan Rumble. It's real simple, man. NF the NRA, ILA, or what? Not the IRA. Is it the IRA? No, I can't remember what they got. One, it's election based. Since LaPierre and those people aren't there no more, it's gotten a lot better. They have a list of people. GOA puts out a list of people. FPC puts out a list of people. I'm trying to remember who else. Um, anyway, your locals might put out, and there's a couple other conservative organizations. They put out a list of people who they're backing. So, what I would do, see who, look at each of these lists and correlate amongst them to pick a candidate. Especially since you don't see a lot of political ads and stuff if you're doing a streaming video and stuff. It ain't like the old days where you watch commercials and stuff on TV. and have newspaper articles where they're interviewing people and whatnot. So it's harder now to figure out these people. But if you do your homework, like I said, look at NRA's election section. They're the GOA, FPC, SAF may have one as well. Then you got you got the various conservative organizations that are out there that put out grades on all these people. So look that stuff up and, like I said, correlate between them, figure out who's got the best average across the board from all these things, and that's who you vote for. Takes a little homework, but it can be done. Barbecue says he has a Galaxy S25 Ultra. So he's got a 1 year newer phone than me. Basically the same phone as I have, but a year newer. And Packard said the same thing I had said. The NRA and GOA, they all put out lists. I miss my Note 20 though. I had the 5G Note 20, but they were going to be getting rid of support for that, which sucked. That phone was good. I love that phone. But say that they do that every so often. Stop support for things. You know how that works.
Mm-hmm.
Probably a lot harder to put Linux on a phone, though.
It can be done, though. I've heard of it.
Oh, it can be done, yeah. Just saying, it's probably going to be a little bit more complicated than putting it on a computer, though. Yeah, we've been going for about 2.5 hours. We got through the video. It was a good video. If you didn't catch from the beginning, I suggest you go back to the beginning and at least watch from when I start playing the video from the reload. 'Cause that was the important part of the show, the main course, if you will. We had a appetizer of what happened in Washington yesterday with the crazy guy that decided he wanted to play target practice on the intersection by the White House. So Packer said if they have a D after their name, don't vote for them. And Gary says, "R ain't no guarantee other." That's what I'm saying. You got to do your homework. Do your homework.
Yep.
There's a lot of incumbent Republicans that, if you look at the rating from both the NRA, or not just both, but if you look at their rating from the NRA, GOA, FPC, and SAF, did not have good scores when it came to firearms laws, for example. And pretty much every one of them lost in the Senate. So people are waking up, it seems. So, anyway, you got anything you want to plug so we can get out of here?
Oh, I suppose I'm going to do a show tomorrow night. So if anybody wants to, come by at 9 o'clock Central Time on the Gizzard Gary channel and check out Foul Territory. Love to have you there. Thanks for having me.
Yep, no problem. Thank everybody who watched, except for the troublemaker, I guess, who didn't get the point
He ain't
of
here no more.
No, he might still be listening. You never know. When you're told you're preaching to the choir, and basically to stop. That means stop, man. And don't try playing this First Amendment card when I'm not the government, so the First Amendment doesn't apply, whether you like it or not. And that's been adjudicated numerous times by the Supreme Court. So you want to try suing me or Gizzard, you go right on ahead. I'll laugh in your face all the way to the bank because I'll counter sue. So go ahead, try it.
Yeah.
Anyway, for those of you who watched and everybody who's still watching, thank you. And we will catch y'all later. Now, where did I put those damn outros? Here it is.